Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Discriminating Gamer. Say, do you know who it was who invented the very first airplane that couldn't fly? The Wrong Brothers. Ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to go ahead and take a look at Age of Dogfights from Forsage Games. Age of Dogfights from Forsage Games is a game that recreates the dogfighting of World War I airplanes. Now, you have a game board, you have little cardboard tokens that are elevated that represent your airplanes, as well as player boards that tell you exactly what the status of your weapons and other systems are. The game board is known as the combat zone. It's some hardstock folding panels. You go ahead, you can either do 2 for a shorter game or 3 for a longer game. You also have kind of the entrance area where you're going to place your planes, which is going to connect with the different lines on the combat zone that you can go ahead and fly out of for the game as well. Now you have the various plastic airplanes. You go ahead and you can put them on different stands. Now these stands range from 1 to 6 and they represent the altitude of that plane. You can go ahead and put those on those planes and prepare them to bring them into the combat zone. Now you have many different kinds of aircraft represented here in the base game, and there are several expansions which bring in more types of aircraft into this game. But essentially the game, most of these aircraft all have certain types of weapons. They have fixed machine guns or they have kind of turret machine guns, and you can either have double machine guns or just one machine gun that's going to kind of help you with what you're going to roll during combat. But you also have on your player board kind of what your ammunition is and how many times you can fire with your guns. Now the game is turn-based, so one player moves all of his planes, then the next side moves all of their planes, and you're taking the numbers in ascending order, and that's what you're doing. It's not kind of a back and forth like in an X-wing. You're doing all your planes in ascending order. Now the first thing you're going to do is look at the plane's speed, which is printed on the player aid there. You're going to go ahead and roll a die, blue die, and that blue number will be added to the number on the player aid, and then you will move that number of spaces, exactly that number of spaces. Now you go ahead and you move essentially from one part of the triangle to one part of the triangle. You see how it works out? The board is very well laid out with these lines that you're moving across. You can do turns, but you can't do a hard turn. You're essentially making these kind of long turns at the angles. There's also some gyroscopic effect depending on kind of how your airplane is balanced, which may have some kind of funky things when you go into and out of those turns. Now instead of rolling the blue dice, you can choose to go full throttle and roll the green dice. Now if you do that, you actually have to lower your kind of your full throttle power because you can only do that so many times. Now each airplane also has an agility number. The agility number is a Roman numeral that says how many times your plane can turn. Some planes can turn 4 times during their turns, other planes can only do it twice. So you got to pay attention to that because that's going to be very important as you're planning your moves every turn. Now, as I say, after you move your plane, you can adjust its altitude, meaning you can point it down or point it up, and then on the next turn, depending on whether it's pointed down or pointed up, you go ahead and you swap out the new altitude, so it's either climbed or has descended during your turn. If, for instance, you're going to attack another plane that is below you or above you, you have to angle yourself just like that. Now on your turn, depending on the armament that you have, you're going to see what kind of your angle of attack is. You're going to look at the angle of attack, which is provided in a player aid, and there's examples in the book that says exactly what you're going to roll from. Now there's a column that says you're going to either roll from column A or column B. Generally speaking, you're going to roll 2 die, and depending on that angle of attack, is going to tell you if you're going to roll in column A or column B. That will tell you whether it's your gun jam, in which case you've just got to kind of waste your next turn to get them unjammed, or if you hit them and damage them, or if you knock them down completely, or if you miss. Now, if you hit the other plane, that player is going to roll a damage die, and the damage die has different colors on it, and it's going to do different things. It may damage their machine guns, taking them out of action. It may make it so that they lose agility. It may make them so they lose speed. It may be some other nasty stuff. Now also too, if a plane is attacking another plane, if that other plane also has kind of line of sight on that plane, they can do a defensive fire, so they get a chance to fire back. But essentially you're going around and around, you're choosing these different angles, you're trying to find the correct way to line up a shot, and as you're moving around, you're of course wary that the other player might get you in his sights as well. There are a few different game modes. There's a dogfight mode, which is kind of last man standing or the most points. You have a few other scenarios that you can play, but generally, depending on whoever fulfills the requirements of that specific scenario, wins Age of Dogfights. So Age of Dogfights is, on the surface, it looks a lot like Wings of Glory or X-Wing miniatures. Of course, this doesn't have miniatures. It has these little kind of plastic airplanes that are on these stands that you kind of tilt, and so it's kind of a step back in terms of you don't get the miniatures, right? But what you do get here is a very, very well thought out and interesting take on this system. You don't have the templates, you don't have the cards. You've got these triangles. You can theoretically move everywhere, but you've only got so many turns. Your speed is somewhat variable with that die roll. So there's all these different factors that come into play, and so every turn you're looking, okay, where can I move to line up a shot? And then it's not just a question of that, you got to think in 3 dimensions because you've got those different altitudes. You can actually shoot at somebody just above or just below you. So if you're at a 4, you could hit theoretically a 5 or a 3. But if they're at a 2, even if you get to where you could shoot at them, they're still too far away from you. So it's cool because you've got that 3-dimensional thing going on in your mind, that 3-dimensional map going on in your mind, even as you're playing it out on a 2-dimensional surface. But it's cool because you've got the stands. That is really cool. So the game is very familiar if you played those other games, those X-Wing or Wings of Glory or what have you, and yet this brings a whole new, incredibly fun system to this kind of game. I played it with Scott, and we had a blast with this game. We thought it was really a lot of fun. All the different kinds of aircraft mean you can't ever count on one plane you've got doing the same thing as another plane. Some planes are going to have rear guns. Some planes are, they're going to be faster or be far more agile. So there's all these different really cool things that come into play when you got this fleet of airplanes that are all doing different things, and you're trying to line up those shots and not get shot yourself. It's fun. I actually think, to me, this game, the way it plays out is much more fun and interesting than a game of X-Wing miniatures or Wings of Glory. Those games I really enjoy because I do like those miniatures, but I didn't miss them here. The game's the thing, and the artwork for the planes was really good, and it's fun. Now, I really like this game. I'll tell you that right now. I had a ball with this game, but I will tell you too, this is one of those games that was an absolute bear to unbox. A lot of stickering, which I'm not a fan of. A little bit I don't mind, but when it's a ton of stickering, it just drives me crazy. There's a ton of stickering here. Popping out all of the stands, labeling all the stands. This stuff is the labels for the stands are just really tiny, and it's like one of those things where I wish I had little baby hands so that I could do that, because it's just, it's rough. So bear in mind that getting this thing unboxed is a bear. But once you get past that, it's worth it, because this game is phenomenal. Liked it much better than I thought I would. Had a great time with this game. Rest assured, I will be playing this one again and again and again. I really enjoyed it, and I think you will too. So if you're looking for a good kind of World War I combat game in the sky, I highly recommend Age of Dogfights. Recommendation for the discriminating gamer is buy it. Thank you once again for joining us today on The Discriminating Gamer. As always, we ask you to please leave a comment for us on YouTube, on Board Game Geek, on our Facebook page, or on thediscriminatinggamer.com. We'd ask you to please like us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube, and follow us on Twitter. We'd also ask you to check out my other channel, that is Cody Carlson, PhD, where we talk about military history and fun things like that. Please subscribe to that channel. And I'd ask you please to, if you've liked this video, please give us a like on Board Game Geek. That helps us out a lot as well. Ladies and gentlemen, I often wonder if there will ever be invisible airplanes. I'd like to think so, but I just can't see them taking off.
somebody help me on my feet again. And I don't know where I'm going, and I don't know where I've been. Please somebody help me on the solid ground. It's a long time, and I'll be dying. Once a year I wind up in the band.
I think I can do better.